All right, we'll call to order the regular meeting of the Waxhaw Board of Commissioners for February 12th, 2019. Welcome, everybody, and if you would, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have no submissions for changes to the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have nobody signed up for public comments for items on the agenda, so we'll move beyond that, and I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next up, some recognition, and I'll turn this over to Matt Hubert.
Pleased to announce we filled our second staff engineer position with Kevin Parker. Comes to us from the town of Stallings. He's got a couple years under his belt and is going to be able to sit for his PE in the next year, so we'll get him ready for that. And he's going to hit the ground running with our resurfacing and get that squared away, so we're ready for this fiscal year's project. And he's not a talker. He said he just wants to look pretty. So I'll acknowledge
Pleasure
that.
meeting everybody. Look forward to working with you all.
Welcome. Okay, next item, we have a couple of public hearings to work through. The first one is a public hearing for Millbridge Phase 7D Major Conditional Use Permit Amendment Petition CU-00807-1-2018. This time I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is a quasi-judicial hearing, so at this time, if everybody that is scheduled to speak would come up and be sworn in, including, we do have the applicant as well. So. If your presentation material is not already submitted to the clerk, please do so for evidentiary purposes. This time I'll turn it over to Mr. Tim Jones.
Thank you, Board. CU 008071-2018 is a request by applicant and property owner Landever LLC for a major amendment to the conditional use permit to allow development to move forward on Millbridge Phase 7D with the installation of an interim locked security gate on a new connection to Torrey Path Road in Phase 7C to allow access by emergency services. The amendment is contingent upon the completion of a signed MOU agreement with CSX Transportation Incorporated, NCDOT, the applicant, and the town of Waxhaw. The property is located in the southwest corner of Millbridge at the southern end of Millbridge Parkway and adjacent to the North Carolina-South Carolina state line. The gate would be located in the approximate location of the red star. Let's see here. It's hard to see on this map location. Right in this area at the connection to Torrey Path. The property is zoned CUR4 PRD for conditional use single-family planned residential development and is approximately 30.84 acres in size. Currently, the subject property is an undeveloped area in Millbridge that was approved January 23rd, 2018 for approximately 72 single-family dwelling units. This is just a quick summary of Millbridge up till now. Millbridge is currently approved for 2,090 home lots. 1,750 home lots have been approved for construction to date. The previous major CUP amendment approved Phase D with 72 lots. Once the current site construction plan review is complete, the total homes approved for construction will be 1,822. The original 2004 Millbridge master plan is shown with the area for Phase 7D and approximate location of the proposed interim gate. And in that area, or in the blow up, that's on the 2004 plan. So for a little background on the railroad crossing closures, August 9th, 2016, North Carolina Rail Division memo with CSX in North Carolina NCDOT Rail Division. They intend to close Hancock Road, Torrey Path Road, and Helms Road railroad crossings. They're proposing to provide a longer rail siding that's needed to alleviate congestion and to not block crossings. Hancock Road crossing closed around May 2017. In June 2017, the town sent a letter to NCDOT Rail Division about the Torrey Path closure, requesting NCDOT to postpone closing the crossing. NCDOT Division 10 Rail, CSX, Town of Waxhaw, Union County, and Landover recently drafted a memorandum of understanding and supporting white paper. This details the roles and expectations to be involved in meeting the common goals between the parties. This will give them their railroad closures, but with the details shown on the screen, NCDOT and CSX proposes projects to allow the future crossing of Torrey Path Road, but provide an open access road to connect with Helms. The access road must be constructed, but emergency needs already exist for Millbridge residents to the south of the subdivision and for Union County Torrey Path residents. During construction, emergency access is provided through an interim locked security gate installed by the applicant. After NCDOT construction of the access road to Helms Road is complete, the applicant provides the gate and Torrey Path Road railroad crossing will be closed. Currently, for the agreement, I believe the town is signed and the applicant, and I believe it's has been sent to NCDOT, so it's in the process of being signed. Of course, this is a graphic here. The map shows areas of concern for the MOU agreement. The base map for this came from NCDOT, showing some of the alternative line work on the map. NCDOT is still working on selecting alternatives and finalizing those alternatives, but providing access for Torrey Path will still be a part of any of the alternatives. Right now, they're favoring an access road shown in red. There's a couple of variations of this, but that's one of the concepts being looked at instead of a direct link through along the railroad track. As part of the staff analysis, elimination of Hancock Road connection to Highway 75 resulted in a lack of connectivity required by the UDO and provided in the 2004 Millbridge Master Plan. A critical need for emergency access. Response times were almost doubled without access through Torrey Path Road. one condition of the previous approval of Millbridge Phase 7D required that zoning construction permits are contingent upon completion of improvements to open Torrey Path Road to meet NCDOT requirements. The request is still to meet the approved condition, but as an access road is under construction, this will allow zoning construction permits for Phase 7D before the interim gate is open, and no final plats. Final plats for Phase 7D only after the interim gate is open, and the applicant is to be relieved of transportation improvements that were related to using Torrey Path Road railroad crossing, which is now to be closed. So it's basically those improvements are moot. So the interim gate approval provides immediate safety mitigation, but only for emergency responders. Future full access on a timeline that meets anticipated development occupancy needs is the other benefit. And this is viewed as overall as an opportunity for all parties. The anticipated year of access road completion and interim gate removal is 2022. This is in line with Millbridge Phases 7C and 7D proposed development build-out. This is a graphic of the proposed location for the gate. Here's where the connection to existing Torrey Path would be made in this area. This would be the new construction for Phase 7C. And the gate in that location. So the staff recommendation, planning staff recommends approval of CU 8071-2018 with the following proposed conditions. This major CUP amendment approval is contingent upon the signed memorandum of understanding between the parties mentioned before. The previous approval conditions stated that the zoning construction permits are contingent upon completion of improvements to open Torrey Path Road to meet NCDOT conditions or requirements. Under this proposed amendment, zoning construction permits for Phase 7D are allowed before the installation of the interim security gate in Phase 7C, but no final plats will be allowed until the gate is operational with connection to Torrey Path Road for emergency vehicles. The condition continues, as a result of the installation of the interim security gate and construction of an access road from Torrey Path Road to Helms Road, the applicant will be relieved of the following previous transportation improvements, and it's the list shown there. Going back, let me go back to that. I did not get the planning board recommendation into this, and that's critical, but it is in your packet. The planning board recommendation stated that at the January 28th, 2019 meeting, the planning board unanimously voted 6-0 to send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners with the staff recommended conditions. At the same meeting, the planning board voted unanimously 6-0 to recommend a reasonable and consistency statement that the major conditional use permit amendment request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future planning goals of the town of Waxhaw and is reasonable and in the public interest, as Torrey Path Road will be opened sooner to provide emergency access and future full community connectivity access on a timeline that meets anticipated development occupancy needs. So the requested action at this moment is, of course, to close the public hearing. When it is up for a vote, it will, of course, go through the findings of fact. And at the end of the findings of fact, a motion to approve or deny. The slide repeats all the conditions. If it's approved with the conditions recommended, or a motion to alter the conditions or add conditions as long as the applicant agrees. or a motion to deny. And then a motion for reasonableness and consistency statement. Thank you.
Would the applicant like to come up and make any comments? Start with questions. Does anybody have any questions? So with no questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Next item up is a public hearing on planning board recommendation review text amendment petition TA 008280-2019. Alexandra Beesting. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. So petition TA 008280-2019 is a request by the town of Waxhaw to amend section 14, which talks about the conditional use permits, and section 16, which is the conditional zoning section of the town of Waxhaw UDO, to revise the existing language to reflect an update to the general statute 160A387, which reduced planning board review time from 45 days to 30 days. So this is an excerpt from the general statute, and you can see underlined in red here, it says that if no written report is received from the planning board within 30 days of referral of that amendment to the board, the governing board may proceed in its consideration. So these are the 4 places it appears that I just put up so you can see them all collectively. You can see that it's in section 14 and section 16, as I mentioned. And the red is the additional text, and the black strikeout is what will be removed. So you can see that it's replacing 30 days over that 45 days. So staff recommends approval of the text amendment in order to update the UDO to be statutorily compliant with 160A387, which modifies the review time from 45 to 30 days. At the regular meeting, the planning board voted unanimously to send a favorable recommendation on both the action and on the reasonableness and consistency statement. And with that, tonight's requested action is a motion for favorable recommendation for petition TA 008280-2019.
Any questions? With no questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item up is now old business, action on the planning board recommendation of the text amendment petition. Request by Town of Waxhaw to amend section 14 et al. In the UDO. So we've heard from Alex. Would anybody like to make the appropriate motion?
Motion to approve petition TA-008280-2019 as presented.
As presented. We have a motion to approve the petition as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed now? And now for, would you like to make the motions for the reasonableness and consistency?
Hold on that.
Like-
Motion,
Yeah, go ahead.
just read it. A motion
Yeah.
for, hold on a minute. Do I have to read this whole?
So you might start the motion, that the text amendment for reasonableness and consistency in the text amendment is the first one.
The text amendment request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, future planning goals of the town of Waxhaw and is reasonable in the, I can't see this, and in the public interest as the text amendment is in keeping with the comprehensive plan and ensures statutory compliance of the UDO.
We have a motion for the reasonableness and consistency statement. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. We have no one signed up for, we have no new business. We have no one signed up for general public comments, so we'll go to town leadership reports, and we'll start with our town manager, Greg Ferguson.
We've got several of those tonight, and I think I want to recognize Dina first because she's got some items that are park and recreation related, and then we've got a couple other items to share with you as well.
Hello all. Give you an update on Park and Rec. So I'm excited to announce some ribbon cuttings coming up on February the 22nd. We have Town Creek for the shelter and playground, and our lovely grounds area that got upgraded with our river rock area and our garden. We do have some Boy Scout projects that are coming up at that site too this spring. So we'll probably bring you back out so you can enjoy that as well. On March the 1st, we have celebrating our grant that we received of our shades and the erosion control of the area. So it looks very professional, and the citizens are really enjoying the new environment. And so we're going to come back and celebrate that on the 1st. And Miss Melody is going to send out some invites to y'all hopefully tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. We're in our final stages for the restrooms at Nesbitt Park. We are waiting on our water permit, so we're almost there for that to be completed. They've been working very diligently getting that project completed. Near Nesbitt Park, we're having a volunteer thread trail / park and rec cleanup day on February the 23rd from 9 to 12. At this time, we have only 8 spots available for the cleanup day. So if you're willing to come get your boots dirty and hands ready to get in there and clean up from after our storms and get ready for the spring, love to have you. More information, please call the office. Update on our master plan. We are coming back for the work session at the end of the month. We're very excited. Just a couple things to go over that's going to be included just to make sure everybody's staying current on it. It's basically going to go over the needs assessment for the town. Also is going to recap the survey responses. It's also going to give suggestions and recommendations for new and expand of our facilities. It's also going to suggest an action plan for the next 3 to 5 years, which I'm excited to see. And then also funding opportunities as well. And then give us a basically estimate of what that looks like. So we have our new calendar out that is on the website and our social medias. We have a jam-packed spring, summer, fall, and winter. So please go ahead and put that on your save the dates and hope to see you there. Something that's dear to my heart is recreational programming. So I'm excited. You have in front of you our first program guide. And all those wonderful things we talked to you about in the fall, we're now implementing. So you're going to see youth, teen, adult, senior programming at least once a month starting off, and then some fitness that will be weekly. So just, I'm excited about it. This is the next 2 weeks, so you can see it's jam-packed. Basically, we are, every other day we're having something. And the response, like for example, it just went out this weekend. Monday morning, our door was revolving of people signing up. So our citizens are really, really taking hold of it, and I think this is going to be a great learning and growth for our citizens. Any questions about our update? Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations on getting it out the door, the programming. That's terrific.
Ask Kurt to come up, because the next item we're going to talk about really is the downtown. And just as a stage, set the stage a little bit, the board met at its annual retreat, and one of the clear interests of the board, without putting a ranking to it, was certainly the downtown. That follows on the heels of the ULI report, Urban Land Institute report, that came to us this winter. And so one of the questions that we have been working on is, what are some implementable steps to put action to some of the recommendations from both the ULI report, some of the discussion that the board's had as to your interest in long-term ownership and management of certain pieces of property that we have downtown, and what could we do? What are the first couple steps to get the project moving and transitioning into something really more than it is today? So Kurt and I are going to share just a couple steps with you and then ask for your feedback and input on kind of a next step. Kurt, you want to take number one and talk about kind of where we're teed up here?
Sure. So a couple of during the board retreat, as you recall, kind of walked everyone through the recommendations from the Urban Land Institute panel, and a couple that really rose to the top were the parking lot and at the Niven Price building, and then the building itself, and how the town is going to use that going forward. And so the parking lot seems to be definitely from the community standpoint, and then from just the feedback at the board retreat, that's something that we want to make sure we leverage for public use, and that we maintain kind of the control of that to help it be an asset for downtown for parking. And so what we would do is kind of get a design done for the parking lot to do some improvements to it, just to show what that would look like from a layout standpoint, and then actually make a construction plan and to just do some improvements to the parking lot. And it would require a budget amendment for that, and so we would kind of do some more of the look more at what would be involved in getting that planning process done, and then come back to the board with a budget amendment.
From a timeline standpoint, we're hopeful to have something for you at your next meeting to actually vote on as far as the budget amendment. What we do have, we do have already kind of that cost for the planning and engineering documents, plural, and what that would be. What we do not have yet is actually a construction estimate, so we're working on that piece of it, and that'll be a little bit of a moving target, because as you recall, when we bid some of the other parking improvements, we had a little bit of a variety of range, just because it's a small job. So we'll look certainly as to what we can do in-house and do with our own crew, and see if there's parts of that we can accomplish. So that's something that you should see come to you fairly soon, and it is being looked at in a way that does not preclude additional improvements being made to that lot in the future. And as you recall, this is really a organization of the existing parking, a little bit of a better flow of the existing parking, and maybe some enhancements to the base, to the signage, but it still remains a gravel parking lot in concept, and so it's delineated parking, but with something that can be put in and removed, like a timber that would delineate parking spaces, that gives future flexibility to what could happen. It's also extremely cost effective versus a pavement structure that would be more permanent. So that is the thought process with that, and we look forward to bringing that one back to the board for your consideration. The second step I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to ask Kurt to jump in too as well, but the board has heard.
Ask a question about the parking. Is the intent to link or to tie as closely as possible the parking lot with the improvements on Church Street, or are you treating those separate and distinct?
No, the design takes the design of the new lot takes into account the 6 spaces or so that are being added on Church Street, and it's actually all tying together.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
An additional thing to point out is on McDonald Street there is an opportunity to do some additional on-street or off-the-street parking between the existing edge of pavement and the fencing that's there. So we're looking at that as part of that concept for really that entire quadrant. So it's really not just what you see today inside the fencing that's gravel. It's what can you do with that entire area, including the existing public right-of-ways on both sides. We've taken the smaller step on Church Street, but now this is kind of a secondary.
And all those things combined, ballpark, how many spaces will we be?
Oh, we're going to be going from 40 on a day where it's haphazard to maybe 70.
Yeah, and I would say it's 40 right now if everyone parks perfectly, which doesn't
Never happens.
Yeah. So,
So it's a net 30 on a great day, and it's probably a net 40 to 50 when there are cars parked with 10-foot gaps in between cars, which happens.
That's great
frequently.
news. That's great.
What we have shared and the town attorney shared with you before is really the framework for a development agreement is a preferred method of selling town property, so that you have some dialogue with the developer or the purchaser as to what the town might do in that project, in that defined project area, to enhance the public infrastructure, the public things that they bring to the table, and then what will the developer do as far as purchasing your property or your building and doing so. It's a set of negotiated business points that are then put into a development agreement. The town does have to participate. The town has to do something. And as you recall, if there are improvements to be made, the developer actually is the one that's making those. So whatever those are, that's something that you end up agreeing that he or she will do. To get to that point, what we discussed at the retreat really was a selection process, or an RFP or an RFQ. An RFQ is really for qualifications for a developer. A RFP is a proposal. This is kind of a hybrid of the two, whether it's however it's termed, it's just really a request for someone to come to the table with their qualifications and then talk to us about what their proposal might be once they're selected. We need the board's input. We think this is a great example of a balanced decision-making process from start to finish, to sit down and hear what you value as far as information that you would need to select a developer. Also, what information you would need to help get a process in place and help design a process to get to the selection of a developer, and really be involved and engaged in that process. Staff is willing and able to help create that framework around what that document looks like. It is a document that will solicit feedback and interest, and we'll handle the administrative part of how that gets out on the street and how people see it and how we get responses. But we really need the board to tell and share what you would like us to think about in that developer selection process. So what we'd like to do is propose that in the month of March, pretty early in the month of March, we try to look for a time for a work session on a separate afternoon or early evening to take an hour and a half, just to talk about that and kind of what that could look like, and what you would feel like would be important steps to consider, things to look at, because that selection process is not a quick process. So there's time to design the document that goes out. There's time for developers to respond, and then you would be involved in what that selection looks like going forward. I talked to the town attorney a little bit this evening about kind of what could we do as a theoretical date. We probably need to do that on an off meeting week. So rather than the second and fourth week of the month, look at the first or third. March the 4th is a Monday night, so that'd be a potential that we'd like to throw out as maybe one thing that the clerk's office could check with you later and see if that works. But that might be an opportunity to kind of have a late afternoon work session, really just to talk about how this works and start it, get it going.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea because this is a first. And rather than just ask you to bring us something that we're not familiar with, I think it's good to cooperate, talk it over, and come up with a plan that we all agree on. So, yeah, since it's the first time we're going to try it, that's very appropriate.
I think it's great. I'm just going to go for the direct question. Does anybody have a known conflict on the evening of the 4th? Make it easy for Melody here. We're all good? Okay, so we're good on the 4th.
Okay. So we're theoretically looking at a time kind of like a work session where we'd started a little bit earlier. There's really it's not a public hearing. It's not a necessary item where you're going to have public comment. So, in the late afternoon would be what we would target. So we'll get with you and try to get a time for probably an hour and a half. We don't really think that it should take longer than that.
Is there anything that you think we should prepare on? Any information? You don't have to answer now, but if you want to get us something that you think would help us, that would be great.
Yeah, one thing that we'll share at that point, if not earlier, is really kind of the framework that some other communities have used. And that's not to say that we need to copy theirs or do it exactly, because no downtown development or redevelopment project looks the same.
Right.
Sometimes there's raw land, sometimes there's a factory, sometimes there's something that's trying to be redeveloped or demoed, and so that they're all slightly different, but we can give you some examples from around the state of kind of, here's one that happened, here's what the town might have done, here's what the developer did in this case, and start thinking about it in that context.
Very good. Any other questions on that?
All right, thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
We've got a handout coming around, and what I wanted to do while the handout comes around is just talk about, we do have scheduled on the 26th a work session with a couple different topics, one of which is the budget process for this year. We are tentatively looking to have Jim Prosser with the COG come back on that night to have some amount of time to discuss kind of a follow-up to the retreat. Don't know yet. We have some time to discuss with him how much we can get done on the 26th, or whether it'll take more than the allotted time there, because we do have at least one other topic. But in just going ahead and carving out some time to talk about the budget process, we're going to provide some dates that are typically things that we hit, and then we can prep up next meeting, kind of have any further questions or comments or concerns. The end goal is getting a budget adopted in June, so you work back from there, and that's by state statute. So we have that as you've got to get that done in the month of June. There's a requirement for when the manager presents the budget to the board. There's a requirement for a budget public hearing, so I'm working from the bottom up basically, and that really gets you into when things start happening. If you work from the bottom up in the month of April, we start getting in revenue estimates on different things from the state, so we're starting to know what the revenues look like next year. If you back up into the month of March, we're really working internally from the department head requests that have been made and submitted in February. And so we're doing internal work in March to understand what those needs are that would be discussed during the process. One thing that we have penciled in there on March the 19th is really to talk again about the CIP and financial planning and what the options are with pay-as-you-go, what the options are with debt, and kind of continue that framework discussion of capital projects, operational costs, and how that moves forward. So that kind of brings us back to February 26th is think about what your questions are, think about what your process questions might be. These are not the only meetings that are for the board. These are just some basic structural proposed dates that we need to have time carved out. But certainly in the month of May, there's always time for any additional work sessions. In the month of April, we could have additional ones as well. But probably next meeting as we have that discussion, just think about what that could be, because we can design it around the needs of the board.
You want us to come prepared to get any major issues or topical areas out in?
Yeah, it really goes back. This is kind of a balanced decision-making model too. Is there information that you think you might need this year? And then from a process standpoint, work sessions, one thing that we don't have this year, or we don't have at all this year, because some of the decisions that have been made previously, is we don't have a need to really talk about external appropriations. So we can focus more time on the capital planning part, which is a good thing in my opinion. So anything else that you want to propose, we can have the board give some direction to staff as to what that is.
I mean, I know, you know I shared the one with you coming out of the State Treasurer's Office, the impact with the change in what we're expected to contribute towards the retirement fund as things progress. I know that is a hot button across all the municipalities because it's what is it, about a percent and a half increase at municipalities. This time through, it's up to 9% now.
It's a graduated increase over a number of years that's going to keep going for a while.
Yeah.
And so,
Real dollars for every municipality. Close the gap. Okay. Any other questions for our manager? Anything else, Greg?
yeah, the last one I had is just an update, and there's no slide with this one, but we had a text amendment that went to the planning board a little bit back, and they made a recommendation on it to move it forward. That was a staff-initiated recommendation for a text amendment. It had to do with certain business uses in the NMX zoning district. We have had some discussions with the board members individually about questions and concerns that you might have. We have tabled that in the interim just to get some this really kind of goes back into that model of what would your concerns be and questions be. So that is not on the agenda tonight. It would have been on the agenda tonight, but that's something that we're trying to seek some feedback and input on. It may be that the board decides that you want to go ahead and hear that as an item. It may be the board decides you want to table it until the UDO, or you may want to just run through the regular process and hear the pros and cons of it and decide if there's a yes or no decision that you want to make. But that's why we don't have that item on the agenda tonight. But just as a FYI, the planning board did hear it. It hasn't gone away. It's just deferred for right now. Just like any other applicant could say, we're still trying to figure out what information is needed.
Other comments, questions?
Yes. First off, thank you. I think one of the things that we, and when I use the word we, that's you, the Board of Commissioners, the staff, our most important partners, and we talk about partners a lot, are the citizens of Waxhaw. And I think bringing that up tonight puts it right out there in the open. There was some consternation about it. So thank you for putting it out in the open, and we will have discussions on it as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Greg?
No, that was all.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Burns?
I'm good.
Commissioner Lee?
I'm fine.
Commissioner Burrow? Commissioner Westlake?
I just wanted to announce that tomorrow there is a meeting with the library board at the Monroe Library in the Griffin Room at 1 o'clock, where they will be announcing a list of sites that they are considering for the, what is Waxhaw Library, but will be the
Western Union County Library.
Right, regional library. But so that's tomorrow at 1 o'clock if anyone's interested in going at the Monroe Library.
Mayor Pro Tem McMillan?
In addition, just to add a little more information regarding the library, there will be a session for the public to address questions or to speak prior to the meeting itself starting in the selection process. So if you are interested in attending, we ask that you get there early so that you can sign up and add your comments regarding the library. Some comments that have been made or addressed were the possibility of keeping the Waxhaw Library open as a possible annex in some form of limited use for the town residents. In addition, Commissioner Westlake and myself did attend a Black History Month program at the New Living Word Church on Sunday, which was an excellent program and a very good opportunity to participate with community residents.
Thank you. Just a couple things. Monday, February 25th, 7 p.m. The Board of Commissioners and the town staff will be on hand to share with all members of the community kind of an update on the town, the many great things that have happened, as well as many of the important issues. We are going to do it in the community room at Forest Hill, and we've been asked to move it out of here in this sterile environment, even though the chairs are nice, Chief. We just, you know, people have asked for more room, the opportunity to hear and then mingle afterwards in kind of a celebratory manner. It's open to the public, provides an opportunity to get acquainted and celebrate Waxhaw, something we haven't done in a while. Second item is tomorrow night is the regional transportation meeting. We will be voting on a new discretionary funding policy. I mention that because the ground rules are getting tighter and tighter. Minimum 20% contribution from local match. That 20% contribution is of the total cost, which construction is about half of it. Contingency, engineering cost, right away, add to it. And so the old model of, or the new model of pay to play is true, and it's going to make Matt and his team's job a little bit more difficult, because we're going to really have to go through the engineering side of it, the right-of-way side of it, et cetera. Absent that, there is a 40% contingency added to it if you don't do the work on your own front at a municipal level. And then lastly, in 2 weeks from a week from tomorrow night, all of us, I think all of us, are heading up to Raleigh, and we will do the annual town and state meeting and dinner. It's an opportunity where we will have, I'm told, Representative Horn and Senator Johnson will be sitting with us, get a chance to listen to our concerns, our regional concerns as well as our town concerns, and have an opportunity to spend some quality time, roughly 3 hours with them, to just mingle and share as a town the things that are on our minds. So with that, those are my comments. We're at the end of the evening. We, as a board, we're going to go into a very, very, very brief closed session to just talk a little personnel approach and issue or topic, and we do not anticipate, well, we will not have anything to discuss when we come out. We'll just come out and adjourn. So with that, I would be happy to entertain a motion to move into closed session.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Real quick.